Well, how do you do there, lads and lasses? Welcome to another blast from the past, another pint of Guinness on Venus. Welcome back to Futurist OWT. Welcome back to Futurist OWTF 237. We put the hoes in hosts and the D's in disease and the nuts in peanuts. The ficus with a psychus, with a will to light us. Time to drive it like you stole it and sing it like you wrote it. To wonder about models and Littlefinger's parenting tips. First off is a sad little number by an up and occasionally coming artist with a long hair, a beard, and affection for sea shanties sung by rock and roll menaces. This is Can I Hold Your Record by Movie Game Man III. Charmed to play it for you live this evening. And not terribly long after that, we have the inspiration to Hosier, the Kahan siren, the Latin lover singing heartfelt ballads into your ear as hearts break together. We're going to play I Can Fix It by Nafcore and the Sad Boys. As we turn over to these two fabulous artists, I want to wish you just a happy new year. All right, Naf, would you like to take it away?
No, I never want to take it away post your intros. I never want to, because you set the bar high and then I come in and I have to try and it doesn't come across as nice from me. They're never as fun. But hi, I'm Naf. If you guys are checking out the video version of the podcast, you're gathering our beautiful little rock star looks as well, which is nice. A little touch of a smoky eyeshadow just to spice it up a little bit. Hopefully there aren't any priests around that are going to shove my face into a
We'll find
flooded
out.
sink and waterboard me until it comes off.
I don't know who's in your house.
Neither do I anymore.
Well,
It is me, but who am I? So that's the question.
I mean, fair. That's point. But yeah, how you doing this fine? First episode of 2024. How you feeling?
Doing good. We're kicking off strong. With just a touch of technical difficulties, but we got through it. And if you're listening to the on-demand version, then that didn't happen anyway. So we're fine. We're good.
Yeah, we were perfect. What
Set
do you
the
mean?
standard. So yeah, g'day guys. Welcome to 2024. This is the first episode of One with the Films for the new year, which we're really excited about. And today's guest is actually somebody I've been wanting to pair up with for a while. It's me. And we're watching one of my favorite films, which we'll talk about in just a little bit as well. But how are you doing, Kay? How's your 2024 treating you?
I'm doing great, and I can't wait to shit all over one of your favorite films today. It's going to be a lot of fun. I wanted to try something different, and we're going to bring chaos to this 2020 season.
Oh yeah.
I guess this 2024. But no, in all seriousness, I am very excited to talk about this film. I love John Carney. I think that I'm very excited to talk about obviously his filmography and things like that. It's going to be a really great one this time, and I was excited that we finally got a chance to discuss this film, and I know that you've been very excited about this one. So
yeah,
it's going to be a great time all around. And what better way than to dress up as sort of rock and roll for a film that definitely deserves it?
Yeah, I went rock and roll. You went like 1980s, like university teacher.
Not so much university teacher. I tried to go for them kind of going to school vibes.
Going to the Blazer. That's what the Blazer was doing for you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That was at least the goal. Clearly it read. And so, but going with that, why the hell are we here?
Yeah, well, I can absolutely go into a little bit of that. We're here for a new episode of the Weekly Watch List, which if you've been around for a while, you know exactly what you're in for, and welcome on back. But for the uninitiated who spontaneously stumbled across our little corner of the internet, welcome to One with the Films. Today we're rocking the Weekly Watch List, which is where we're always back each week with a brand new film. But with this kind of, what's it called? Hold on, let me make sure my phone is muted. Sorry, guys. But yeah, with our Weekly Watch List and how we do things here, there's a cheeky little gimmick that we love, and the idea is that essentially, every single time somebody brings a new film on here, somebody else hasn't seen it. We get to hang out here and talk about, each other's favorites and share the love for a medium that we're all kind of obsessed with, which is always heaps of fun. And so it's a great place to be if you're working through your pesky watch list, or if you're looking for a few films to add on to that watch list, because chances are some of the stuff we're checking out you may not have seen before. Especially, I mean, this one has a bit of a cult following, but some of the stuff we've checked out has been pretty low-key, which has been really, really cool. So, welcome. We love you. And if you want, you can also find One with the Films anywhere you get your podcasts. So it's available on, your YouTube Music, your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those kinds of places. You can follow us there to check out the episodes on demand afterwards. And if you stick it around to the end of the episode, we're going to be announcing our guests for next week as well as our next film. So yeah, you'll know what you need to watch
And this
week.
one's a doozy.
Yeah, you'll know what you need to watch this week so that next week you can join in on the conversation as well.
But yeah, we're here, and we are doing John Carney's Sing Street. Now, Naf, you did, as you pointed out, you did bring this film with you today.
I did.
This is yours. You made the decision behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You did a phenomenal thing there. So, can you tell me a little bit, I guess, before we get fully into it, just so, well, I guess, it's the new year, guys. We're trying to get back into this. But
let me tell you a little bit about the film.
You have a lot. There we go.
We got there. We got there in the end. So, some fun facts about Sing Street 2016. The third film, written and directed by John Carney, was released in 2016 on a budget of merely $4 million USD. It premiered at Sundance and went on to bring in around 14 million USD, making it a success relative to its budget, but potentially a bit of a disappointment relative to John Carney's prior films, which brought in 23 million and 84 million respectively. Featuring a relatively unknown cast in a story about finding meaning within yourself and your art and chasing a dream no matter the cost, film garnered wide critical acclaim and features some of the best original songs ever in a film of its kind, in my humble opinion. It has a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd from over 200,000 review. It's, at this point, it's about my 16th thought, and it's still correct. So we have 200,000 reviews on Letterboxd, giving us a score of 4 out of 5, and on IMDb we're sitting at a 7.9 out of 10 from 100,000 reviews. It's starring Ferdia Walsh-Peelo, Jack Reynor, and Lucy Boynton, and the film was a bit of a darling, taking 45 nominations across festivals and such, but failed to make enough buzz to get any sort of Oscar nomination. It was, however, nominated for Best Musical or Comedy at the Golden Globes that year, and was later adapted for the stage as a musical. Just like Carney's previous film, Once, that also was adapted into a stage musical.
It fell slowly.
I actually haven't seen that film, and I need to, but the musical production was set to premiere at the Lyceum Theatre in April 2020, but production was halted due to the pandemic. They ended up releasing an album featuring the original Broadway cast performing the songs instead. It did end up finding its way to the stage with a second production in Boston, where it ran from August to October in 2022, and was also nominated for Best New Musical. John Carney stated that the film is loosely based on his life as a young teenager in the 1980s in Dublin who discovers pop music and starts a band. And the original soundtrack, which you can find, on all of your streaming platforms, is actually performed by Ferdia Walsh-Peelo, just like they are in the film. So it showcases his skills not only as an actor, but as a performer as well, which I really, really love.
Which seems to be a theme of his films, as we'll get into. I think you can see a pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely wants people who can kind of balance the two things out, which is really cool, honestly. So that's a little bit about the film. The flip side of that is why I've brought it to you. And
yes, Naf, tell me why.
Well,
why'd you bring this here? Why'd you bring this on a platter and put it before me and made me eat it? Why'd you make me cut it up into little pieces and just go num 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 num?
Because it's delicious, obviously.
Well,
so I humbly consider this to be a perfect film. This, in my most recent rewatch last night, cemented itself as my favorite film. And you know how when we talk about films, it's very different to potentially how other people may. Like I'm sure that there are other films that are better made than this film, that have better directors, that have better performances, all that kind of stuff. But for me, the things that cements
it's NAFCOR.
A perfect film for me is, those kinds of things, the NAFCOR sort of tick boxes, but mainly a lot of it's got to do with rewatchability and how much it continues to affect through rewatches. And my most recent rewatch of this film yesterday was my most emotional rewatch of this film. Like I couldn't even explain why it affected me more in the most recent rewatch. Even when we were prepping and I was doing sort of like ideas for promos and things, I'm sitting here and I'm watching little clips that I'm turning into promos and I'm getting goosebumps on my arms. I'm like, why? Why does this happen? And when I watched the film, that just kind of came up. It's like I had been needing to watch this for a couple of years because I hadn't checked it out for a little bit. And I'm so glad that we did it on the podcast because it forced me to watch it again and kind of, really look in a lot of those feelings. So, I know that you are a fan of John Carney and particularly one of your favorite films, Begin Again. I watched after Sing
Oh,
Street,
yeah.
and you got to watch Begin Again before Sing Street. So I'm sure we'll have a bit of conversation on
In the
that
proper
as well.
context. The
Yeah,
proper order.
absolutely. So, yeah, I definitely want to talk
You
about...
did the machete method. I did the chronological method.
Yeah, that's very true. But, yeah, so I'm really excited to have a bit of a conversation about this film because it's one that I've wanted to bring to you for a little bit. So, yeah, I want to know a little bit... I can
tell you're nervous. We have not talked about this film yet, so I can tell you're a little nervous.
Not really, man. Not really. Like,
right.
my feelings on the film are cemented, so it won't change based on
fair enough.
anything
No,
you say.
No.
So, regardless, I want to know a little bit about what you knew about this film going into it.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I had a roommate who had watched this film after, because Begin Again came out, and I had watched a little bit of once. It just happened to be on, and I kind of watched a little bit of it. It was like, all right. Like Falling Slowly is one of the best parts of that film. I have not watched the full thing, so maybe we'll have
Falling
to
Slowly,
do
is
that
that
as
a
a blind
song
date.
or...
that is the song.
Gotcha.
From that movie. It actually won Best Original Song at the Oscars. So
who's in that film?
I think it's a bunch of unknowns, kind of like his work. It was very much a kind of similar to this film, where it's like he kind of just grabbed people. I think Begin Again is the only one where he actually kind of has name recognizable people in it. And so but my really big experience with John Carney came from Begin Again. I randomly saw that film in my junior year of high school, and it moved me beyond words. Like his work just has this profound impact, which we'll go into, because I think that there's a lot of what I love about John Carney's work that's in this. That very much he has just this innate sensibility about life and how to portray complex figures. And you and I have a little half joking battle about Begin Again versus Sing Street. And but before, we never could actually have the battle because you were the only one who saw both, and I hadn't seen this one. I just was arguing the other point out of spite. But now that we actually have this, like, I am interested to kind of talk about the two, because his work is very emotional and very beautiful, and I'm very excited to discuss that. But yeah, so like I had seen Begin Again, and then I had heard about Sing Street coming out, and because of Begin Again, I was excited to see Sing Street. I just never got around to it. Like, it was always just one of those things where I always wanted to, and then I started to get a little pissed off because everybody started talking about Sing Street, but no one said anything about Begin Again. And so I started being a little mad that no one was talking about the superior film.
That's really interesting that that's how it kind of laid out as well, because when you look at particularly like box office numbers, Begin Again was his biggest. When I mentioned in the fun facts that you've got a film that brought in, what was it, 84 million? That was Begin Again. Like, so Begin Again brought in 84 million and Sing Street brought in 14. So I think that does go...
Must have been the marketing, because I remember around that time, like, no one was really, and also I think it's different because, right, like, Sing Street didn't have as many stars in it. Like,
true.
you know, obviously
Keira Knightley and
Begin
Mark
Again
Ruffalo
has, I mean, that was half of the reason I saw it, was just knowing, oh, Keira Knightley, Mark Ruffalo, like, I'm gonna go see this movie.
I had a thing for her
which
in the early
made me
2010s
love
as well.
both of those actors. Well, I mean, it was 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, early 2010s, as you said. But basically and I had a lot of people that were talking about this movie. Like, this movie had really good word of mouth, if not the box office kind of reflecting. I would put this in a category of akin to cult classic, I would say, at this point.
Yeah.
Because it has a rabid following.
Yeah.
And I would even say, like, maybe it's not even that much to call it a cult classic, because it does have like a stage adaptation and things there. But as you said, it is one of those films that people talk about. Like, and when you bring it up, there's a lot of people, like Marley, obviously, you know, in the chat and everything, goes, "Oh, Sing Street."
Yeah.
Fucking love that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, in chat as well, Whoosh mentioned that they saw the movie once at MIF, the Melbourne International Film Festival. I mentioned they were too immature to appreciate it, so I should see it again. So probably a good time for us as well, maybe having missed it around about that time too. We probably would have ended up in the same camp of kind of like it would have gone whoosh over our head, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I definitely am
Fair
keen to
enough.
line that up and watch that again soon. And funnily enough, after watching this film yesterday, I watched his most recent film, Flora and Son, which came out this year. Oh, not this year, but last year.
John Carney?
Yeah, he had another film come out this
Oh, he
year.
had another one?
Yeah.
Shit.
It's funny because I heard about Flora and Son from Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Instagram, where he just was like, hey guys, you can check out the album for the new movie here. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I went and I added the film and I saved it and I was like, I'm going to watch that when it comes out. It came out on Apple TV Plus, so I didn't have my subscription set up, so I hadn't gotten a chance to check it out yet. And then yesterday I was like, I wonder if John Carney's done anything new recently. And then it popped up that he'd done Flora and Son, and I was like, oh, okay. Which, funnily enough, is a very similar way to how I came across Begin Again, because I didn't watch Begin Again by following John Carney. I just was hanging out, and I think I watched Sing Street on one of the streaming platforms we have here in Australia. And it had like related films, and I was like, oh, that was interesting, I'll check that out. And it wasn't until it finished that I saw, this is
the guy
by
who
the same
did
guy.
Sing Street.
Yeah, just worse.
That was how I was with Hook with Spielberg.
Yeah, it's funny that things like that happen
I
too.
didn't realize that movie. It's always a funny thing when you get to the end of a film and it's like, oh shit, I know who made this movie.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
a very interesting situation. But with like but with what you're saying, I felt that about all the stuff, and I think that it's a very interesting thing because I got to check out Flora and Son because it's just he has a really great way about him. Did you said you watched that movie?
Yep, I watched that yesterday.
And
Of what I've seen of his, it's my least favorite, mostly because the actual music in the film didn't resonate with me as much. In Begin Again and in Sing Street, I love the soundtrack so much.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in this new one, there's a couple of tracks that are kind of nice, but funnily enough, I feel like obviously music is a big part of the film, and they usually have that kind of one staple song. And
Yeah.
in Flora and Son, that doesn't play until the credits, which I thought was an interesting
Ooh.
choice. It's
Yeah.
it's a build up, and then it doesn't, and then it's in the credits, and I was like, okay. I mean, it's a really nice song, but it feels like it should have been part of the film. That being said, his
Yeah, I hear that.
character work is fantastic again, and it is another like musical film. And I like how in each of his films he kind of introduces these almost like larger than life ideas. Like in Begin Again, you've got I can hear the instrumentals, and you watch it build, and I go, that is so cool. And in Sing Street,
That
you
is
have that.
creativity in a nutshell.
Yeah, in Sing Street, you have the Drive It Like You Stole It music video scene, where it's like, hey, it doesn't matter what it looks like. If it's in your head, you're right. And that connection just, I think, is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And in Flora and Son, the main kind of like relationship, I suppose, is there's a lady who's doing guitar lessons with a guy online. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, she only communicates with him through the computer. But they usually start, and the camera is here, and she's looking at the computer, and then it turns around, and he's there.
Okay.
And so every time they're
Yeah,
interacting,
like
he's in the same room as her. And I love that touch, and it continues throughout the film.
He does that really well. But
Yeah.
going with that, I guess to tell people here, just so you guys know, for those again of you who are uninitiated or just discovering us for the first time, what we do here is we talk about the film, spoilers and all. Now, while this is not a beat for beat breakdown of what happens exactly in the film, we're talking about this like you've seen the film. And now I do believe that if you're not afraid of spoilers, this is going to be a great conversation. If you haven't seen the film, it's also a great conversation. But if you have seen the film, that's kind of what it's more designed for. But hopefully we intrigue you and we kind of get you interested in what we're talking about and doing all of that. So getting us kicked off, we have a couple of different topics that we really want to start off with. And going fully into it, as you were talking about Nav with his other films, John Carney is one of these incredible directors, kind of akin to your Ryan Johnson's, your I mean, honestly, like Damien Chazelle, similar vibe there, as well as Greta Gerwig. Like who they cast really embodies
Yep.
like these characters. Like his
Like,
stories, I feel like are interesting, but it's the characters that sell them.
absolutely.
Like it's very much these people. The reason that these films are even half as good as they are is because you believe the characters.
Hmm. And I think that
And
one
so
of
I want to know kind of like which ones obviously stood out to you.
absolutely, and I think that talking to that as a what's the word, like a staple of his films is really interesting because I think that, like you were saying before, it goes to show that they're not just picking names for the sake of picking names; they're picking people who fit the roles. And I think that's something that all of his films do really well, including this, is that every single one of his characters feel like they exist beyond what you're seeing on the screen. Like they existed
Mhm.
before and after, and obviously within the film. A lot of what you have is framed within the lens of your main character, and you don't really get information until it kind of is given to them. And I think
Yeah.
this is fantastic as well, and two of my favorite characters in the film, and it goes to show because at the end of the film, the first line when it ends is "for brothers everywhere," and that's I think another thing that really makes the film resonate with me. Like I come from a not like a huge family, but like there's four of us. I have my older brother, my younger brother, and my baby sister. Like all of us connect through music and films. Like we all love those same sorts of things. So that relationship there of looking up to the older brother is something that I've done with my older brother for my whole life. Like there was a point only recently where I was like, huh, my personality is just his personality. So like, what am I? What am
Yeah.
I? And I think that this film asks that question in a beautiful way and answers it in a beautiful way as well, while still giving a lot to the people around him, particularly his brother. So that's a really roundabout way of saying that the casting for Brendan in what was his name,
Jack Reynor.
Jack Reynor, who also is in Flora and Son, is perfect. Like he
Oh
is
my god.
so brilliant in this film. And again, in terms of not getting a lot of Oscar buzz, but like best supporting actor, I
Oh,
I wonder who actually won
I'm
that year.
gonna
I'll look
get
that up
I'm
in a
gonna get
minute. But
well, I mean, if you want my 2 cents on that sort of thing, going in blind to this film, because even having,
it was a tough year.
you know, oh, well, yeah, that year was a brutal year for trying to get into the Oscar race.
Mm-hmm.
That was honestly one of the best years in. I still go with that year was one of the best years in film. Period.
Mm-hmm. You got best
20
supporting
what was it?
actors,
Because it
2016.
was 2016, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because best supporting
Oh, so it would have
actors.
been
Let me guess. Let me see if I can
2017.
get this right. Because I know it was Gosling. Well, no, Gosling was lead actor that year.
It would have been
So,
at the 2017 Oscars though, because
2017
yep.
Oscars.
So
Because it was
best actor in a supporting role.
It was Mahershala
Yep.
Ali winning.
Yep.
Fuck, who else was in it? Like,
So
who else was
Dev
in the race
Patel
that
in
year?
Lion, which is
Fuck, you're
interesting
right.
because I thought he'd be a main character in that
Jeff
film.
Bridges, Hell or High Water.
Jeff Bridges, Michael Shannon in Nocturnal Animals, and Lucas Hedges in Manchester by the Sea, which I haven't seen, but I
Oh
have heard
shit.
brilliant things. Like
Oh, he deserved it.
it
That
was a
year.
tough year.
Like
It was a tough year.
it was a tough year to even get in there. Now, uh, going with that, Sing Street. When I'm watching this film, what John Carney does a really interesting job of in all of his films, and we'll get more into this later, but he does a really good job at pairing very serious topics, very
Mhm.
serious, emotionally complicated topics with a feel good movie that doesn't try to oversimplify the complicated topics.
Yeah.
Like Begin Again, you have Mark Ruffalo literally talking about, I was about to step off a suicide. I was about to step off of a platform and commit suicide, and then I heard your song. Like that's what he was planning on doing. And yet that film is one of the most like positive films
Mhm.
about two people just vicariously healing each other
Yeah.
um through the art of music. And this is a similar vibe where you have an ongoing discussion about, you know, parents that we're not ready to have kids,
Mhm.
and
My
we're not
parents,
ready,
Mum,
and
Dad, if you're
and
listening,
have,
I still love you.
but and having to deal with that,
Mhm.
and the effect that, and the roles that siblings then have to play
Yeah.
in that. And what's so beautiful about this, I'm really excited for Cinema a la carte, because I put down a film randomly, just because I thought it might have something to do with it, but I think there's a lot of things to tie back into it.
Mhm.
But it does remind me of another one of my favorite films. And but what I really love about it is it's all portrayed through the eyes of this kid in love. And that's like at the eyes of this kid in love, who's just trying to start a band amidst the chaos in his life, and learning that art can be an expression of how to do that. And but to me, what the film is about is, it's about the brother, in my mind.
Mhm.
Yes, it's about the kid, but Brendan is the main character to me. Maybe it's because his character just steals the show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell me a
To
little bit more
me, he
about that.
just
So,
steals.
um, in what sense do you feel that he kind of takes on that mantle of main character?
Well, because the whole thing is sort of, we're seeing his younger brother having the life. I think the whole film is solidified in his monologue, right? Like the monologue that he has when he talks about, do you understand that that you're living the path I macheted
I
out
love the
of
use of that word too.
that hell. It was such a brilliant use of that word,
Mhm.
of going macheted out of everything.
Yeah. It's
And
like, you think they're
like
crazy
for
now.
us
Imagine when they were. I was alone
in
for
their late
6
20s,
years. Yeah, two Christians in their late 20s that got married just because they wanted to
they
do
wanted
it.
to have sex.
And, like, yeah, imagine how crazy that would have been.
And I think in that regard, the film shifts perspectives, right? Because you start to look at his character differently, as he starts off as this kind of mentor, little bit of this kind of like, oh, he is kind of like this guy's Yoda, a little
Yeah,
bit, like kind of this wiser old mentor, until you start to realize, in my mind, he's starting to get jealous that his little brother is actually living the life that he kind of wants to live. Like, he's very proud of his younger brother, but he's now starting to work, like, as we come back, he's stopped smoking. He stopped these other things. It's not direct, but we're seeing, it's like generationally, we're seeing what this character could, what our main character could have been in 10 years down the old same path.
absolutely.
And that's what I think is so powerful about his character. And it actually leads to only one of my only gripes of the film, which was, where was that solo? Where was
Yeah.
that solo of him playing guitar and doing
So,
that?
I actually have thought about this a lot. Obviously, I've seen the film a few times, and it's something that almost like, it's interesting that they don't touch on it at all. Like, there isn't a moment of like, hey, you didn't show up. You know, it's almost just
Exactly.
he sees him and it goes unspoken. And I think that while early on, I definitely felt like, where was that? That felt like the completion of his kind of character arc. I think that it actually makes a lot of sense that he hasn't shown up at that point. And I can definitely elaborate on that a
Okay.
little bit more. In a
I
little
want
bit if
you to,
want.
because I'm
Yeah,
curious.
well,
You've obviously watched the film more than I have.
I mean, in its simplest form, we have no information on when the last time he actually picked that guitar up was, right? We know that he has gone to college and dipped college and he's become a stoner, and every single time you don't touch particularly an instrument like the guitar for a long time. Like, I'm not
Oh, it
amazing
takes
at the
you a
guitar,
while.
but I can play it well enough. But I still know that in the last couple of years, while I have not put effort into staying like good at it, there are things that I could do 2 years ago that I can't do anymore. Like alternative picking and singing at the same time. Like I can't do it anymore. And that was something that I was really good at. And you add into that, you know, stoner and all these kinds of things. If he showed up and he did the solo, he would have crashed and burned. And I think that both characters kind of knew that, and that's why it's not discussed. It's like, we're both musicians. I understand that you would have loved to be there and you would have loved to support, but if you had shown up, I would have pulled you on stage. If I pulled you on stage, you would have grabbed the guitar. It would have been horrible for everyone. And so I think that the culmination of his arc does come in the him being outside and talking about what he wants to do, and then obviously the end of the film when he takes him over, and it's that acceptance of
totally.
I have allowed. I could have been the person who stops this, and I could have told mum, and I could have A, B, and C, but I think that, and as Woosh says in chat as well, I think that it does go to say that it isn't overall, like, that moment isn't about him, and if he did show up, it would become him. And I think that also, when you look at the previous scene of the Drive It Like You Stole It music video that's playing, when he shows up in there, that kind of is, that's what we want for him. That's his ideal ending, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in that sense, that was something that I've thought about a lot over the years, and these days, it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't see it as a gripe. I do see it as, like, fitting the narrative, but in the mentality of, hey, he's the main character, I can actually see how you would look at that and go, well, he's kind of my main character, and he hasn't got his moment. So,
and don't get me wrong, he got a moment. It just, to me, as a writer, feels weird to make that a plot point. It's more personal taste. Ultimately, he got a very satisfying moment with his brother, which is what the film is really about.
yeah.
Is that moment at the end. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this movie sucks because it doesn't have that. It feels just like an odd plant and payoff moment.
Yeah.
Like in Begin Again, you have Adam Levine saying to Keira Knightley, I'm playing this gig, you should swing by. Be really weird if she never swung by.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the film just kind of happens and it doesn't, that part never happens, it feels like a weird thing to say narratively. Like, obviously it's a little apples and oranges, but nonetheless, like, and ultimately, I very much do enjoy this film, and the moment that he has at the end is beautiful. And again, the main character is great. I love the journey that Conor goes on.
Mm-hmm.
The
Conor
journey
Lawlor.
of Conor Lawlor.
It reminds me of, have you seen 30 Rock?
No.
I know Woosh will get this though, but did you see the show that I'm working on, The Rural Juror? It's The Rural Juror.
The Rural Juror.
The Rural Juror. The what? Unfired
the,
Chekhov's gun. He gets it, is what Woosh says.
Mm-hmm,
and I think that when you compare the two, it definitely makes a lot of sense, because like you said, you do have that beat, and it almost, I think, is an intentional play on that. I've seen your previous film, and that's how it worked out then. What would happen if it didn't go that way? It's almost like an intentional, how else can this play out? I want to know the different ways the story goes. Because I think that you can also get in, like, not to kind of frame it that way, but like you could potentially get in the habit of having the same story structure every single time, or the same kind of overall sort of beats.
Yeah,
and
but I guess what's not to interrupt you too much with it, but like I guess my main gripe with that is more John Carney. One of my compliments that he gives to me is, there is that James Cameron line that, even though I kind of have some issues with how he chooses to express it, I do agree with the general sentiment, which was somebody talking about like the Banshees scene where like they're flying, and it's like they said, this adds nothing to the film. This adds nothing. Why would you have it in the movie? And he's like, well, I want it because I want to see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like John Carney has a very similar vibe where I want to see, like, I think about Begin Again. There's a scene that really doesn't add much to the film, but it's that scene where like they're celebrating the completion of the record, the completion of the album, and they're all in like James Corden's dinky little apartment, and they're all doing like, they're all partying and dancing, and it's just a little nice little montage. But we look at that and we go, and in my mind I'm like, yeah, narratively this isn't needed, but I want to see it. Like, you've done such a great job with these characters that I want to see them have this moment. And that's what I feel, for me, is a similar thing here, where like, sure, yeah, it's not a big deal that he's not there, but I would have loved to see it. Like, you got me to a point where I'm going to weep if I see him go up there and play an amazing solo.
Yeah.
Because then I feel like the brother's going to be okay. Like, I feel like he will be. But it's just, again, it's when that character resonates with you, and you want something for that character in a very particular way. But going to Conor Lawlor, and his moment. What I really love about Conor Lawlor is seeing how the film really does a great job of navigating how he becomes how he grows into himself. You know, where like he goes from this and then being like he kind of is awkward at school, not very very confident about himself. Then he says, you know, I read the guidelines. I read the guidelines there. Said nothing about makeup, so I thought I could, you know, wear it. And you know, the hair, the dyeing of the hair and things there. And he's just innocently trying to explore who he is. I
Absolutely.
mean, you and I both know how that felt when we discovered putting on makeup and doing things there and how beautiful that felt for us. And I uh, to have that moment that really did hit me was when the priest did try to take all that makeup off. That was
Mhm.
like, oh my fucking god, like that hit me in the gut.
I think the film, uh, it feels very real throughout. You know, even to the point of like that dream sequence. It's like we've had conversations about this where like I picture something in my head and like I can see it and I can full on visualize it in the way that he visualizes things, and then I can see how something I'm working on in real life is different to that. And I feel like that moment that he has at the end of that kind of like, okay, let's shoot it, is it just resonates with me on so many levels. And yeah, I think
Agree.
that the film, while feeling so like real, it does that by doing almost the Taika Waititi thing, or the what's it called, the Fleabag, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge kind of
Yeah.
disarm with comedy and with light, and then just like there's no music in that scene
Bam.
at all, and there's also a sense of it's almost like shot like a horror film, because he's like, you know, come in here, we can do it. And part of me was like, it's a priest inviting a kid into his bathroom.
I had the exact same thought. Like I thought, oh shit, is he? Is he about to touch this kid?
I had
Like,
a
is
little
he
bit of
about to-
that, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't think that's the way it's going to go, but okay. And then Connor going, I'm just going to go to class. Part of me went, that's not going to go unpunished, but I don't know
Oh, same.
to what level this will be punished. And the fact that I expected, even in my rewatch now, I was kind of remembering it differently to how it happened. I thought maybe he gets towards the door and he comes out, grabs him, and drags him into the bathroom and does it there. But no, we have about 3 insert shots of him walking quite a bit of the ways away to like the bathroom, almost on the other side of the school, before the brother Baxter shows up, grabs him, and does that. And like we said, yeah, that feeling of him looking over his shoulder going, it's weird that he hasn't shown up yet. It is a bit of like, it gives a bit of James Wan in there, you know? Like it feels a little freaky.
Oh yeah. Oh well, it's such a moment there. And hello to Eliana in chat, as well as obviously my 2 credits hopped in there a bit ago. Just hi to everybody. And guys, just so you know, if you are tuning into us for the first time, just listening to this podcast, we do record these every Saturday around like 6:30 PST. And so if you want to just check us out, you can come in live and communicate with us there. But continuing on, yeah, I agree with you. Like it really comes out of nowhere,
It
and
knocks
it
the
really,
wind
but
out
like
of
in a
you.
beautiful way. It really does. And it, again, as you said, I mean, so much of that shit happens in this movie. Like like another one that gets me is like when they're filming their first video and the bully comes along with his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, are you guys filming like a video? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And they're then at some point it's like, you know,
He talks
the
back to his
kid
dad.
kind of says shit, and then all of a sudden just bam,
It's like, what'd you say?
just
Nothing?
hits him.
Whack.
It truly is just like it catches you off guard.
Mm-hmm.
It
Absolutely.
really does.
Yeah. I think that
And
those
it's
were
just
the.
like,
Sorry, you go.
yeah, no, like that's it. Like tell me your
No,
thoughts.
I think that those are the moments within this film that really like they shock. You know, like for me, I love the music in this film, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. But like the performances of the characters here, like Brother Baxter's brilliant as well. And
yeah.
I know we talked a bit about Brendan, but I do want to talk about some of the other like actors and their performances before we move on to our next sort of like section too. But yeah, that kid, what's his name? Barry, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
the
it's
guy
bad.
with the kid with the glasses.
Not the kid with the
Oh, no, no,
glasses,
no,
but the bully.
the
Yeah.
bully.
So,
Barry,
um,
yeah.
in the nicest way possible, no hate to the actor. He's gross to look at on screen. Like you can
No,
see from the
like,
moment he shows
you
up the amount or the lack
he
of
has
care
that
that his
skinhead
family.
bully. Yeah, like, no, go ahead, continue, yeah. But, like, you're absolutely right.
So yeah, like even especially in a film where we know that there've been a production team putting everything together, costumes and hair and makeup and all those kinds of things, to then have a character show up who does have his head shaved, but you can see the little tufts where it wasn't done properly. It just, in the moment, you look at that and you go, he either did it himself or somebody who hates him did it. Turns out it's his dad, and his dad hates him, and so does his mum. But I think that, yeah, from the second he shows up, he is this, like, for lack of a better word, like, gross presence. Even
he has this intense, palpable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, he
pull
has
down
this
your
intense,
pants, get in the
palpable
cubicle,
energy.
and dance.
Oh my
And I was
god.
like,
Yeah,
what?
that's that scene, because what's so interesting about this film, I'm always fascinated with how bullies are portrayed,
Mhm.
because you do have that very stereotypical bully that's like, oh, everybody likes me, but I could be mean to everybody else, like right here, which
The
does
Regina
happen, don't
George.
get me wrong. Yeah, but like, shout out to the new Mean Girls movie.
Mm.
But my feeling is that the bullies I've experienced are more akin to him, where nobody really likes him, but they're just intense and you can't avoid them. Like, they're gonna find you and they just want to cause chaos, you know?
Mhm.
And it was like mine it's just I find it so fascinating with that character, because you feel bad for him. And then they have that incredible line, which is, you only know how to stop things, not how to create them.
Yeah.
And I that one, that killed me.
Mm-hmm.
That was because it's true. And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, do it. Yeah, hit me again. Sure. If it's gonna make you feel better." Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand that. And, like, I think that also it's another aspect of, like, perfect casting, too, because I feel like it's very possible for a character like that to just feel, like, almost too much. Like, to feel like
Oh,
too
yeah.
much. And I think that Barry walks this line really interestingly of almost too much. Where it's like, honestly, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
dialed that 5% more, I'd be like, ugh. But somehow...
I mean, even 1% more.
yeah.
Even 1% more, this is a caricature.
Yeah, absolutely. And you obviously the film focuses on a few of the band members more than others. Like our main character in Conor or Cosmo is our main kind of view into the band, which in ensemble casts it's pretty easy to have people kind of fall by the wayside. However, while you don't have a lot of time with the rest of the band, somehow when I watch this film, I don't feel like I didn't get enough time with them. I don't feel like I'm missing or don't have enough information. Like somehow within the introduction, you learn so much about the characters that I don't need backstory and scenes at your house.
That's a John Carney special to me, because like Begin Again, they do a similar thing with, we need to get the band together, and we'll do these little scenes with like the violin and strings, where it's like, oh, these two, they were like top of their class at this area, like that they're virtuosos, and they're this thing there, and then when we see them, it's like we don't really go into that much, but we know that's their story. So every
Yeah.
time you see them, it kind of adds that context to your brain. And then the bassist and the drummer were people that CeeLo Green in the movie had given over. And I think this movie improves on that concept. Like, John Carney did that really well in Begin Again, but I think this movie does it better. Where you really feel like one of my favorite scenes is when they get the bassist and the drummer, and they go, and it's just so expertly timed. The writing and the directing in this scene needs a medal for making me laugh so hard when it goes I think it's like you have they're looking at the board and they're
Mhm.
like they're just like staring at that. It's this awesome like static two shot of them taking over here. It's like, oh, looks like a bassist, that's you. Looks like a drummer, that'd be me. Looks like we're gonna need it. And somebody comes by and it's like, how you doing, you cues? And it's like it's like shove off Barry. And
Yeah.
like and just but
It's
they
like,
don't
look at
skip a
that. That's
beat.
for us. Piss off, Larry. It's just, yeah, it
Yeah,
tells you so much
it's
about them.
such yeah, piss off Larry. It's just like it's such a fucking funny moment, and we
Mhm.
don't get much with those two characters except
Yeah.
the fact that he wants to wear a cowboy outfit in the thing there, and
Yeah.
then but also he has one of my favorite moments, which is dancing with the old lady on the train,
It's a
where
nice
it's
little
like it's
touch.
not one of the other ones because it's how you keep these characters engaged in the story, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't need to hear dialogue, you just need to see them. And that was a moment where it was perfectly they're still involved in the story, but they do such a great job rounding out that band. I mean, one of my favorite characters in the film is the AJ, I think his name is, like the kid with the glasses. The kid with the glasses that is the virtuoso playing like
Oh,
all the
yeah,
different
yeah.
instruments.
Hmm.
His basically like his best friend, who I also low key thought they might end up together. I was like,
Amen.
how progressive is this movie gonna be? That was what I was curious about. I was like,
And
um,
Woosh mentioned about the kid as well, that, he says he won't wear makeup, and in the next shot he's wearing makeup.
he's wearing makeup.
Um, yeah, and I think that in that, it would be remiss to not mention the performance by Ferdia Walsh-Peelo, who I've only
Oh
ever
my
seen
god,
in
yeah.
one other film, which also was my favorite film of that year, which was Coda in 2020.
Oh
Um,
shit.
yeah, he plays like the main kind of love interest, or the person that is partnered up with her for the production, and I hadn't seen his face in anything since, and I'm just watching this film randomly, and I'm like, oh, that's my boy, and I was so happy. And I looked up his
Oh
letterbox recently, and he doesn't have much else that he's done, so he's kind of like disappeared
yeah.
from the face. However, I think that casting a, essentially like a no name, or somebody who hasn't done a lot of work, who is the age of the character, there is so much, not like so much angst, but there is, and Eliana mentioned they love Coda as well, which I'm glad to
Oh my
hear. That
god.
is the correct answer. Um,
That is.
however,
Did you know that I haven't seen it?
oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Anyway,
Yeah.
you've got this kid who plays like awkward teenagers so well, and in a spot that every person has been in, or I would assume most people have been in. We've always like kind of longed for, or like yearned for, like someone. And even in how he writes his songs or his lyrics about Raphina, he's mentioning, like, when you don't know someone, the idea of them is insane. And that's, that's like what psychologically like a crush is. Like a crush is a lack of information. Once you have that information, it's not a crush anymore. You're either in love or you don't like them. Like the crush is
Yeah, you have an informed decision.
I don't know what it is, but I am enthralled and I want to know more. I want that information, which I don't have. And I think he plays that so well. And Raphina obviously
You're
plays her
right.
part incredibly well too. But down to the moments of his biology, the way that his cheeks like flush after the first kiss
Oh, yeah.
is something that doesn't happen as much when you're older and you've had a bunch of kisses and you kiss someone for the first time. Like there's still those little nerves and stuff, but not in the same way. Like my face doesn't light up like that the way that it did when I was a kid, or that sort of first time. And I think that
Oh yeah.
whether intentional or not, it works so well. And when he takes Raphina to the island and they're hanging out there, and those little moments of discomfort feel like a camera was set on a kid who took a girl out for the first time and is just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. That it doesn't
Yeah,
feel scripted.
it feels like a literal like first love. As you said, that there's stuff about that you can't script
Hmm.
and you can't direct. Like it just is there or it's not.
Exactly.
Like and fortunately with this story, they got it. They nailed it. And I mean Rafina too. you have both actors that are really portraying, like, Raphina does a really great job at playing that quasi bordering on manic pixie,
Hmm.
but not at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, like, she's doing a really like, she's a fascinating character, and I it's kind of interesting because the film really rides a fantastic line, which is almost the details that these kids seem to be unaware of. It's like when you read a children's book meant for adults, where it's like, "Oh, the kids in the story don't are talking about really deep things, but they don't know how wise what they just said was,
Mm.
but the adults do." And the adults are like, "Shit, you said it that way." Like, when she's telling stories about how, "Oh, yeah, my dad wouldn't really let me go out because I love," and then she says the line of like, because it's like, "I just love you too much." And she's just like, and then she says something that stuck with me as, did I interpret it the way that I was
Hmm.
supposed to interpret that?
Yeah, that hurts, that one.
Which is her, yep, her saying, her saying, "My mom was is much prettier than I am. I don't know why he was so infatuated with me, or like why he like paid so much attention to
Yeah.
me,
Why you bothered with me?
and,
Yeah.
why it bothered with me." And I went, "Oh, did I is that does that mean what I think it means, or
It
is that
does.
And that's when I was like, "Fuck." Oh god, like, you said that in the most, it was so subtle, I almost thought I was overthinking it.
Hmm. And I like how Connor's reaction.
His face says it all.
And even in the scenes post, it kind of aligns with exactly where you're at because you're kind of like, wait, huh? What? Oh, and then it literally cuts to him having that same reaction, just being like, damn.
Like, she was abused.
Hmm.
Like, and
And it
that's the
ties back to the moment earlier where, oh, my dad was hit by a car and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, nah, that's all good. He deserved it. He was a drunk.
and it all tracks, it all makes sense, and it's like, it's so heartbreaking because you look at that and you're like, oh my god, it's it hurts. It
Yeah.
hurts so bad. And I personally just had a whole moment of going, I don't wow. Like, just truly flabbergasted with
Yeah.
that moment.
And it continues that theme, like we said, that the film builds up and then punches and then builds up and then punches and it continues even down to like those moments towards the end of the film where you could wake up to his mum and say bye or not, but steals the keys and just looks at her and goes bye mum and then just looks at his dad, and his dad's just sitting there sleeping. He doesn't really say anything to his dad. Like,
Can
what
that
does that mean?
actor ever play anyone that we don't hate?
I felt really sorry for his dad. I didn't hate him.
But I feel like he always plays them in a way that I just want to punch him in the face.
He has a punchable face for sure.
Like, but it's not just how, like, it's how he plays it
Mm.
that hits. Because he'll look at them and just be like, I don't know, the feeling with this character always feels like he's trying to start a fight.
I feel like the
Like, he's
actor has
always trying
really
to instigate it.
he's really zeroed in on what contempt looks like.
Yeah. And it's tough because in Begin Again, like, when you have Mark Ruffalo's character and I'm blanking on the actress, but like his wife, uh
Oh,
did they have a
you
very
can't remember the
complicated
actresses
marriage?
and the actors in this film? You can't remember them. Interesting. They mustn't have
I
resonated
don't
with you
have
all that well.
my ADHD
You're okay. You're
medication.
okay.
Give me a second. Be nice. Be nice.
I don't recall who plays his wife in that
I'm
film either.
looking it up. Hold on. Because it's a recognizable actress. I'm just trying to. Catherine Keener. Yeah.
Okay.
Same person from uh yeah,
Yes.
same person
I know
from
her.
Get Out.
Yep.
Yeah. And but Catherine Keener, like, the dynamic they have, it's like you both understand those characters because she also, like, at first you're like, oh, fully on her side, and you're like, oh, Mark Ruffalo's the asshole.
Mhm.
But then you hear the story in that film, and not I won't spoil it, but then I feel like the tides turn
Mhm.
on the full perspective of the story,
Yeah, I understand
and
that.
it's like, and I feel like these characters were never fully given that opportunity, the mom and dad in this movie. But I think this story was about the brothers, which I feel like is fine. Like
Mhm.
both of them have both of them, like the mom certainly has a ton of sympathy in this movie. They have beautiful scenes in this movie. I feel like the dad doesn't get as much, but that's fine. Like it's not about that.
Mm.
It's
Well,
just like, yeah, you know?
Whoosh mentioned the dad reminds him of a snake, which I think is really interesting. He does have that kind of, again, it's a Peter Baelish of it all. And
Yeah.
Elizabeth has joined us as well. Hey, Elizabeth. They also love this movie, and she says, "I'm pretty sure the mum was Catherine of Aragon on The Tudors," which I cannot confirm because I don't know
That I
her from
believe.
much else. But yeah, I think that there is a lot that's really interesting about them. Also, like down to the sister that doesn't have a lot of screen time because it's about the brothers,
Yeah.
and you could argue that, she should have had a bit more screen time. But what's interesting is
For sure.
when she's there, what we do see, we almost are experiencing this through the lens that Conor has for her. He doesn't have any way to connect with her now, and it's not until you've got that big fight happening that they all go into the room together, they actually have the chance to connect through music. And
Which
again,
is brilliant.
it's a brilliant scene.
Brilliant.
You even got her sitting there, and that's very much her personality. Like, what's wrong with being an architect? Like, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be this. I don't need that. And there's that little insert of her just grabbing the joint, going, and then back to normal. And it's a blink and you'll miss it little thing. And
Yeah.
it's those moments, as you were
I think
saying,
I
where
did.
the side characters don't have a lot of time, but when they're around, it's impactful, and you remember seeing them.
Oh yeah. Well, it's even like I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Nagig. I think that
Ngig,
it was
yeah.
or Ngig. Yeah, I gotta learn how to pronounce it properly. But he steals it. Like I love the ignorance that the kid has when he's having
Amazing
the meeting,
scene.
and the guy goes,
What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him?
Yeah. Also, I think that in this watch, it kind of. I don't think Ngig can actually play the piano. I think that, like, when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, cool, like, they got it. But I feel like there actually is that sort of subtle undertone of we want a black guy in our band because it's cool. Like, that's what they want. And if you do look at the shots when he's kind of, like, playing at the start, he isn't doing much at all. And especially when they're trying to replay it, he's not playing like someone who knows how to play piano would. And by the end, obviously, he's significantly better.
He's like,
but yeah, there's just that, and I was like, oh my god, I think that, like, because he says, can you play any instruments? And he's like, maybe, I think is what he says, or I can't remember his exact word.
like,
but he doesn't tell you explicitly that he can play. And then my thought now is he actually said to them, no, I can't. And they're like, doesn't matter. Come, this guy will tell you what notes to play, and you play, because they think that it's cool. Which it adds another layer to what was going on in Dublin at that time.
Oh yeah, which
Especially for the little
we should
ginger
probably
kids.
transition. Well, especially we should really tie into that, because like that is the thing that what I really love about John Carney's work is he always seems to do this, and it's fucking insane how good he is at being able to do this. Is how he's able to tie in the subject of divorce, the subject of broken households, the subject of economic poverty, but he has such love for environments. You see his love of Ireland in this movie, as much as you can see it as this kind of shithole that they're in. It's kind of like Banshees of Inisherin, when they're like, this is a town that nobody leaves, it's a town that everybody knows everything about everybody, and you look at that and it's like, oh my god, this is insane. And they're right. Like, this movie, like, portrays it as it's shit to be here, but they all have to just keep going. And this movie does a really great job of giving them, like, oh, we're gonna see this through a child's eyes, but at the same time, they can't afford a new pair of shoes for him. Like, we're constantly getting these little tidbits into their life, but that's not the story that we're focusing on, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like in Grand Budapest Hotel, where the B plot is that there is this invasion happening, but we're focusing on the art robbery. It's like the more significant event is the B plot. But no, we're focusing on the art. We're focusing on this goddamn art robbery. You know, like
Yeah, absolutely.
that's what I think is really brilliant about what he does with this work.
Hmm.
I don't know how you felt, but that's definitely the thing that I I really was excited to see this
Yeah.
and to see how he did this. And I love the fact that, like, you know, oh, here are all these people that are leaving Ireland to go to the mainland because they think there's better work there.
Yeah. Like the film is framed with that. It tells you that at the start of the film, that this is where everyone's headspace is at. And you know, you can tell that, like, that's unfortunately how things were at that time. And I think that even outside of that, there are a lot of themes that are explored within this film. Like, obviously you've got that, you know, just Dublin or Ireland in the 80s and how hard life was there. And you can see it in things like, we're going to sell the house, we've got an offer, it's half what it's worth, but we're going to take it. Like, you don't have another choice. This is just how life is here. And I think that that's really, like, powerful by what's the word, like, grounding this story, which could feel larger than life, in this very simple and difficult lifestyle that these guys have to live. Like, no wonder they haven't been able to explore their vocation up to this point. I think it's really powerful. And yeah, and for me, it works really well, because again, when you frame that within this sort of coming of age story, you can then tie in that feeling of, you know, like we named the title of the episode, the happy sad of it. This film is happy sad. And the film is, it's like Raphina says, she says, you're not happy being sad, you're not comfortable being happy and sad at the same time. And that's what love is, Conor. Oh, that's what love is, Cosmo is what she calls him. And
Yeah.
I think that this film is a metaphor for, like, love, I suppose, in that it is reflecting happy sad throughout every line in it. From the opening shot, you have Conor playing the guitar on his bed, happy that he's doing his own thing. But what is he singing about? Oh, he's literally reiterating the lines of his parents essentially abusing one another in a kind of funny way. He doesn't realize that he is in that state. And when you look
He
at almost
doesn't
every
realize
scene,
he's currently being traumatized.
you look at every scene in this film, right? You have the bruised eyes because he just got punched in the nose. But you know what? All of a sudden, he's got the courage to go and talk to the prettiest girl on the block, you know? Like, all of a sudden, you can do this. And then you start the band, and you're so happy you started the band, but look at the band. It is a mess. But are we having fun? We are. Cool. And then the kid shows up.
Well, it's what his brother says in the movie, which is like Connor has that great line, which I feel like we've said to each other multiple times when we've been creating something, which is just imagine that it isn't shit. Yep, exactly. Like, just imagine. And he talks about where it's like, you know, but there is something here. Like, his brother is so great because he's like, there is something here. His brother's constantly being, there's something here. All you need to do is just get a better camera and a better director, and it's going to go great. But to me, it's kind of the thing of being like, that means it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. It's just a matter of time before somebody notices that it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's even like the first video. What I loved about it, because it's what I loved way back we did our Me Earl the Dying Girl episode. One thing we didn't talk about as much on that one was the short films that they made in that. They talked about in a lot of the making of that movie that they didn't want it to feel like it was a professional film crew going around and doing short films. They wanted it to feel like it was short film
By the
filmmakers,
kids.
which is why they hired local short film filmmakers to make them.
Oh, that's cool.
So basically to film them with what they had around.
And I think,
So this feels very similar. All the shots feel, they could have done it with the crew that they had and done it more akin to like how they end up doing, you know, the Drive It Like You Stole It video, but they don't. They really are I wouldn't have a doubt that they gave the kid the camera and were
Yeah.
like, film it.
And down to how
know?
even the music is recorded into a cassette player and then played out of the cassette player. Like this is all done in camera. Like if you told me otherwise,
Yeah.
I would be shocked. I would be aghast. I would be appalled.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like I think that it very much emulates that, which I think is beautiful. It doesn't. Sometimes you can come across things like this and you go, but they didn't do that. They didn't make that. You know, like which can make things feel a little like, you know, and I think that within this film, by grounding in the reality of it there with the kids in the living room playing in the and I was just thinking just in that moment too of more of like the little insert shots that just give so much character development. One of my favorite ones is once they're starting to like pick up a little bit and they're practicing in the living room, the mum comes in, puts down a sandwich, they keep playing, she goes upstairs and there's just this little shot of her putting batteries in something and then she just turns it on and then just cuts back downstairs, and I was just like, that's fantastic. It's hilarious. I didn't expect that to happen.
Oh yeah, I had a moment. I was like, oh, what's she like putting batteries in a flashlight? And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, and I was like, oh, and I'm like, that is brilliant. That mom character is so funny in the movie. Even love. There was one moment, and also again because of that moment. There's another time after that scene, I think it's like a couple of days later, where she comes in and she's smiling, like putting the cups down and things there, and I'm like, okay, is this before or after you had like the other thing happen? I'm guessing it's after, because you look like you're beaming, and I doubt it's the music.
Time. Yeah.
And I'm like, and so I thought that was pretty funny. I also love the scene. You're talking about just like great comedic timing. Two things that I love. One was, Mom, come on, you know I don't smoke. Cut to immediately smoking.
Yeah, all of them smoking.
And then the second one was the rabbits. Like, what's this thing with you and rabbits? And it's like, I just love like rabbits.
Yeah.
Avon is one of my favorite characters in this whole thing.
I think that the relationship between him and Eamon also reflects that sort of brotherly relationship too, in a really beautiful way. The idea that, you know, it's the conversations that you and I have had before, which is literally just me calling you or you calling me and being like, I need to write. This is my idea. And I'm going, great idea. Here's how I would, and we go back and forth, and then we've got something down that
it made me realize that I'm like, if this is how people write music, you and I could write a musical pretty easily.
Yeah, we could. But yeah, like I think that it adds layers to that. And again, it's those things that I tick off as NAFcore, or the things that are like, all right, it just grabs aspects of my life that I love and puts it into a film, or it's something that I would make. And it's like, okay, when you make what you know, let's say you put me in to make something right now, I'd be writing something about yours and my creative process, because that's all I know right now, you know? I think that is there's something about how and where did you find that, and how did you extract it in the way that it needed to be to hit the right, I suppose, frequencies for me, you know? And that's why this film resonates with me so much. And we mentioned a bit about like some of like the themes within the film, and you know, it goes through, is a coming of age film, so there are so many things within there that need to be kind of explored, you know? And you've got like we said, there's a bit of nostalgia there from the perspective of the father that tells you things like, they're not like the Beatles, are they? And we want things to move forward, but we want to respect what came before, and we also want to look at something that's different and wild and not like anything you've seen before, and also go, what could it be? You know, like it has something. And I think that it just weaves those themes within its narrative so perfectly. Like I've put notes here of like, you know, yearning and nostalgia and escape and friendship and art, and like the idea of like metamorphosis and becoming, you know, the true version of yourself, that you see him try and fail at a few different aspects. You see the growth of the character through the visual like the costume changes, essentially, which I thought
he has
even in how the music evolves. Like I like the song Riddle of the Model. I don't love it. It's probably my least favorite from like their
oeuvre.
Their discography, I suppose. Like I like it, I don't love it. And then the next song, I go, I like this a lot more, and then it just builds up and up and up. And the songs towards the end, particularly that slow down a little bit, are beautiful too.
But I mean, "Drive It Like You Stole It" is still like
That was my number one song on Spotify for like 3 years in a row.
I mean, "Drive It Like You Stole It" is. I mean, it's also just the scene that goes with it of
Brilliant.
the brother showing up like James Dean off
The
of his
parents
car,
happy.
the parents actually being
Like,
there and being happy.
They've just
Which it was
said,
such an odd thing to see Littlefinger dancing. Was
see,
something I never thought I would see in my life.
what I thought was interesting about that scene is that he actually plays it beautifully. It doesn't look like
Oh,
something that's
yeah.
not familiar to him. Like when they walk in and they're so happy and they kiss and he's just watching them, there is this sense of awe in his eyes while he performs this, caricature version of himself. This is for Cosmo. I think that's something that's so hard to capture in an actor, to tell them, hey, this is your dream, but you're also witnessing your dream for your first time, and it's unraveling for you. Like, what we saw there wasn't the clip that he's going to record eventually. It's like we saw a glimpse into the future. We just saw what would it look like if I was able to do it in its best form right now, and what would my life look like if it was as perfect as this clip that I want to make. And I think that there is something so powerful in just longing and yearning for things to just be a little bit better. Just a touch. That my parents were just a little bit happier, that my brother was just a little bit more present, or just able to do it a little bit more, and that the girl liked me a little bit more, enough to kind of just stay a little bit longer. It's chasing something that is just out of reach, which I think is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, even to kind of start wrapping up with it, I guess the last scene is something that kind of embodies that to the fullest degree. Like, one of my favorite things about the brother and the relationship there is the hug that they give each other. And I love the fact of like, are you going to go over there? Like, oh, what you going to do? Oh, we want to leave now. And you just see the smile on his face of like, all right, you fucking idiot, let's go.
Yeah.
And I love the thing where they're both trying. They definitely get pneumonia and possibly die in this journey. But like, that's the only thing that I'm like, well, this ain't making it to England. I'll tell you that much. This little boat, I don't think that's gonna happen.
But if you follow the conversation he had with with his brother earlier, where he says, "Once I was a fucking jet engine, and you went in the jet stream," that's what he's doing in the ferry, where it's like, the ferry's kind of like blocking that stuff now. So his path to England is much clearer now that the ferry passes.
Oh no, that was what I loved it, and I love the fact that the image of the ferry came back, and again, even you see it like John Carney has a infatuation with his last shots being the face of his main character and being them on a journey to God knows where for God knows why. But all we know is that they're on the path that they should be on.
Yeah.
That was what Begin Again did. That's what this film does. And it's this beautiful moment of seeing the brother just, pump his hands in the air and talk about the song that he wrote for his younger brother.
Yeah.
And this way of them inspiring, like, I want to be the jet engine again, and him just sitting in that car and having a moment to himself. That was where I was like, this guy, like, we got to put Jack Reynor in something, because that actor just did so much with this role. This role easily could have fallen flat.
Yeah, he
like,
could have been the
like,
funny stoner older brother, like almost like a Seth Rogen kind of character.
But the film doesn't necessarily, like, except for the monologue, the film doesn't necessarily write the brother phenomenally, but the performance shines all of the new, and that's a John Carney specialist. I don't think he's a particularly phenomenal writer, like, but he writes good enough and directs well enough that then trusts the actors to like breathe this incredible life into it, like there are writers like Vince Gilligan, Peter Gould, like that whole team that I'm like, oh my god, you were like sent by God to like fucking write.
Yeah.
And then there are writers like this that I find more inspiring because I'm like, okay, this feels more achievable in a beautiful way where I'm like, this is honest, it's real, it's authentic, it's fun, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's hard. I mean, it is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put any damper on his writing skills. It's like, but do you know what I mean? Like, does that like make sense?
It's the Sam Raimi and Multiverse of Madness thing, right? It's like you have someone who can come in and elevate something because of themselves. They put so much of yourself into it that you're able to elevate it beyond what it was originally intended.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of the thing of going, that's how I feel about his performance in this, in that moment where they're just in the waves and they're getting spattered by rain, but they're smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, this was a fucking terrible idea. Why did we do this? This is horrible. They're just laughing and smiling. And as you said, it's just, you put it so well. Like the music improves. It's all of this, and that the journey's not over. It's just beginning.
Yeah.
And I love it, man. I love it.
I think that you can find so much symbolism within the film too. Almost like, the idea of they're trying to get away. Like one of the things that I really loved at the end of the film. So they're trying to get away on this tiny little dinghy, right? Which is very indicative of we have nothing. The likelihood of us surviving this trip isn't high. Like it's going to be very difficult. When the fairy comes in and nearly, takes them out, it almost feels like this is what it's going to feel like when home comes back to haunt you. When you are running out of money and you're not able to get to that place and
yep.
It's like you look at it and you go, this is such a monumental task or a monumental wall in my way is home constantly calling back to me or constantly
and it's
being
also
in the
this
way, or being in my field of view.
And even to go off of your metaphor, because I think that it's correct, it's brilliant, because it's even like you're seeing the people on the deck of the ship who seemingly have it easy. Like for us, I feel like those are the people that have already succeeded. People that are making shit that you and I want to do. And it's like watching them on the top of the ship just kind of wave back and just kind of do this as it's like, do you know how hard it is to be in the waves right now?
Yeah.
Don't worry, you'll get there.
Yeah.
You'll get there. Don't worry. You'll be fine. We're all heading in the same direction. It's just, we're a little bit ahead of you. And it's like, that's how I feel that kind of fairy shot represents that. And then you have the people like the brother who, as he says, the reason we have cover bands is it's people that never actually thought they could make it in the music industry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. Does that really? I feel like there is a film equivalent with
that's the character he plays in Flora and Son.
Really?
Yeah. He plays like a failed musician who wants to start up a covers band.
Oh my god. Oh, that's meta as fuck.
Yeah, it is. And like it all, like we said, is wrapped up in this beautiful picture. That I can't help but be in love with for every moment I spend with it. And every moment I spend with it, I love it more. And every time I listen to one of the songs, I love it more. I
did like that they called out Lost Stars in one of the songs. I did appreciate that. There was at one point in there, Lost Stars is the main Begin Again song.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
And at some
I remember
point,
the music from
because you're, well,
I just haven't seen it in a long time.
It just figures. You're just, say you got to see like 200 movies a year, and you just forget about the good ones, and that's fine. But it's all right. It's all right, Neff. We can't all be great. And so as this movie kind of shows us. So speaking of greatness, shall we move on to cinema a la carte?
Yeah, well, I think we've covered the majority of the film. Like we said, you've got some brilliant performances across everyone. I love how natural Conor's performance feels. And
so
while
good.
Brendan's performance doesn't feel as like natural in that sense. You know what I mean? Like I look at Brendan and I go,
it's a very different kind of natural.
Scripted, and Conor's doesn't. Yet they both work so well, and they complement one another. And I think it also
And I think
again,
that's
you
part of
could
the
be
point.
seen as a metaphor for it. You've got one guy who not necessarily has his life more together, but has a bit more understanding of what's going on, and another kid who's just trying to figure it all out. The other guy figured it out and gave up. So you have that sort of difference there. And like I said, it weaves these beautiful themes throughout itself, and the music to kind of top it all off is fantastic. Like, I don't think you can really listen to many songs in this film and not have a great time. But that kind of covers most, or if not all, of the things that we wanted to talk about. Before we do move on to cinema a la carte, did you have any final thoughts on the film?
I think this film is so worth checking out. Like, this film was an incredible journey to just go on and to enjoy, and it was a treat. What can I say? It was a treat. It continues to add to films that I'm like, this is a treasure, this is a
Yeah.
gem. And as one of our lovely fan says online, this film is genius because we did just happen to discover it, and it is just because nobody saw it doesn't mean that it isn't brilliant. And
Gotcha. I wasn't sure where you were
I'm
going
just
with that.
I love calling out that comment. I didn't do it effortlessly as this is as obvious,
Words.
but not my friend today.
So that being
But
said,
the
let's move on to cinema a la carte.
better.
This is
Good idea.
a section that we do at the end of all of our streams where we take the film we saw today and we just recommend a couple of pairings for it. You know, a wine and a cheese, if you will. And do you want to kick us off, Kay?
Sure. Well, we've talked about one of mine already on this. Hard not to. But if you really enjoy John Carney's work and you really enjoy the story of people trying to help each other, trying to help each other out, and if you really enjoy a musical story told in New York City that really captures the vibe and beauty of New York, uh, especially the city of Manhattan and, kind of all the various trappings of it, but focusing on two people who are in desperate need of each other. Um, then you got to check out Begin Again. It's one of my absolute favorite films of all time. Uh, Beautiful score. Keira Knightley, Mark Ruffalo, uh, an underrated gem that continues to be forgotten about. And if you enjoy Sing Street, there's no way that you're not going to at least like Begin Again.
Yeah.
But the one that I really think, the more we talked about this film, the one that I really think, if you like this film and you really want something that kind of tickles that Irish flair, really tickles that kind of Jojo Rabbit-ish youth and comedy in a drastic state of drama, while it also deals with the generational hardships of growing up in Ireland at a very particularly volatile period of its history. You got to check out Kenneth Branagh's Belfast.
Great
This
choices.
was the biggest, I guess, second biggest surprise of 2021 for me.
Yeah.
This film fucking killed me when it came out. I didn't know much about it. I thought it was about a band at some point because I think Kenneth Branagh was about to work on a film about a band or something like that. And I thought this was it. End up watching it, and I was I the best way I put it is I'm like in the first 30 minutes I didn't know what this film was about, but by the end of the film I didn't know what this film wasn't about.
Yeah.
And if you like Sing Street, I think that you'll really enjoy Belfast in that regard. But now, Naf, going up after that, what are you feeling? What are you feeling with all this? Obviously,
yeah, well, like I actually
be the sommelier. Pitch for me.
Before I started writing them down, the first one I thought of was Begin Again, and then I was like, Kay's going to say that, so I can't take that from you.
No, I was really happy you let me have that.
Yeah, but I did find two films that I think really, really exemplify big themes of this film that maybe aren't necessarily that same sort of feel, you know? So I've got Sound of Metal is the first one, and this is for a film about music that isn't necessarily a musical. It's about musicians, and it very much has to do. Yeah, it does. And it very much has to do with how do you find yourself again? Like, what does it mean to be you? And are you your art, or do you exist beyond your art? And also, it very much dials into the feeling of wanting things just to be a little bit better. And I think ultimately, it balances that stuff out really well in ways that feel like almost like the grown-up experience that this film's trying to show us, you know? And then following that, I've got Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, which I think is, again, exemplifies.
Did you actually say the name of the previous film?
Sound of Metal?
Yeah, I thought I could be just ADHD, and
I'm pretty sure I said it, but if I didn't, it's Sound of Metal, starring Riz Ahmed, which is another one of my favorite films, and
Olivia Cooke.
Yeah, and like I said, my second film is Lady Bird, which I think, again, you have your main character trying to carve out a path for themselves that's different from what everyone else kind of expects them to do, and they're meeting resistance at every corner from every person possible, and it's about acceptance of oneself. I think that's beautiful, and those two make a perfect pairing for Sing Street.
Oh, as soon as I saw you put it on there, I could not.
Me too.
I truly couldn't. I truly couldn't have thought it better. Like, I thought that both of those picks. Obviously, I haven't seen Sound of Metal yet. I believe that's an episode we have not terribly far away from us.
It's kind of far away, considering how booked out we are. But
I mean, but it's on the list.
But it's there nonetheless.
Absolutely. But
following that, as we mentioned at the start of each episode, we always say that at the end we're going to announce the guest that's coming up, and we do have a guest coming on our episode next week. Did you want to say who the guest is, Kay?
Yes, I really want to. What I really wanted to do was, so our next guest is a fabulous person, incredible person that we got a chance to hang out with at Star Wars Celebration. And when we talked with this person, we were like, oh, well, what film do you want to bring on? Because obviously, we love to do something kind of very unique and very interesting. And we have Chase, also known as Forward Into the Back. Give me a second. I'm going to try doing that again. We have Chase, Forward Into the Back, who basically is going to be talking about the 1985 film Come and See, which I have heard nothing but intense things about. And I told him, or I told them when I was talking about them, where I was like, you're probably the only reason I would ever see this movie. So let's go. Yeah. So if you want to follow up this wonderful experience with watching something very heartwarming, very fulfilling, and you want to follow that up with something else, I think that you should definitely check us out this coming Saturday and come and watch Come and See with us.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great time. We're very excited, obviously, to get a chance to finally do an episode with Chase. Is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for it as well. I'm going to watch that this week. So yeah, I'm a little terrified, but we'll see how it goes. That being said, you can find One with the Films anywhere you find your podcast. So we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we're on Instagram and TikTok as well if you like getting a little bit more of the content side from us. You can come and follow us on Instagram where we do teasers of the next episode, and on TikTok where we do your skits and all your other kind of stuff as well, just to, it's fun anywhere you go. If you liked this episode as well, you also feel free to like and subscribe or follow if you're listening on Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms as well. But where can people find you if they want more UK?
Oh, well, if you want more of me, you can find me at Movie Man Opinions on anywhere you get your social media. And I can also just simply be found by knocking on my door. So,
and what was your address again?
Well, if you want to know, it's 1234 Suck My Ass. And yeah, So,
Well-
Nev, where can people find your Australian ass?
You can find me out on second thought, almost anywhere. You've got the links to all of our profiles are actually down in the description as well, so feel free to follow us out from there. Yeah, and besides that, like that's essentially the end of this episode, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for the live, if you're in live, and thanks so much for joining us on the recording, if you're here on the recording. We love having you.
Oh my God, guys. It's been such a great year so far, and we obviously are getting a chance to come and see you guys. Last year was a great year for us, and we're very excited to be able to bring this back to you for the rest of this year. And we have a lot of really exciting things coming up, and that you're going to be very excited about, a lot of which are kind of just we're figuring them out, but I think you're going to enjoy the next coming weeks. So, we just want to thank you guys again. Please listen to us again. Please join us again next weekend. And until then, as my friend Raglan would say, significant understanding gambles with lives, happiness, and even destiny itself.